While there is still no word on a cure for the virus,
report suspicious activity and call 911.
I can give you every assurance, Mr. Rooney, that Paris is home and he's
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, That Would Be Rad. We're a podcast that majors in 80s and 90s nostalgia, comic culture, all things paranormal, and minors in retro video games, tabletop RPGs, pre-internet mysteries, and trying to raise our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s. We are your hosts, Woody Brown
and Tyler Benz.
Hey, man.
Hey, pal.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
I'm surprised you didn't already hit us with, I've just got a nose full of pollen and a migraine, and I gotta just close the curtains.
I do have a migraine, but I'm just sort of sick anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for folks that get migraines. Mainly, it's just one of those things you can't control, and that's I think the sad part about it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Anybody that does a lot of work, close-up detail work, I think is an easier target to be afflicted by it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, my heart goes out to you. Okay. Today, speaking of our hearts going out to folks, I don't think it's a big mystery, especially if you've been listening to our show for a long time, how much I love true crime. In fact, when I'm not doing research for the show, I'm those are the podcasts that I binge. And even, YouTube videos that I watch in the background, entire court cases, days and days worth of YouTube footage that I just have playing in the background. It's a little crazy, I bet. But in today's episode, what's exciting about it to me is that this is going to be like an intersection of the things that I love and the things that I've come to love, which is, the weird, the strange, the paranormal. And we don't often get a chance to kind of say, hey, man, hats off to the men and women that serve our country in a different way, and that is through, police officers. Okay? And I have several close friends, actually, husband and wife, who are on a police force here in Georgia. Yeah, dude,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool, and they're amazing folks and friends. And anyhow, there's a phrase that I think we've all heard, and that is to serve and protect, right? That's the foundation of law enforcement. But what happens when the thing you're protecting people from doesn't come from this world? We think about the dangers that, for example, my friends are every police officer puts themselves into every single day that they go to work. And I think that's probably one of the things that we all take for granted. Now, I feel like this goes without saying. There's jerks in every potential position of authority, around the world, right?
Right.
But we're talking about the folks that they are putting their lives on the line every day because they want to, because they truly love and want to protect the people of society. And that's, just speaking personally of my friends, that's the kind of people that they are.
Right.
And every single day that they walk out the door, man, their lives are in danger. When every single car they pull over, it could be somebody wielding a weapon.
Yeah.
It could be, something you never know. And so that's why I think it just hits home for me, because I know these people personally really, really well. And when you think about it, like, okay, they're pulling over somebody, that's one thing. But what about whenever police officers come in contact with things and these threats that aren't human or even remotely explainable? Today, we're going to be diving into some of the most bizarre, eerie, and just downright unexplainable cases reported by, of all people, law enforcement officers. Now, keep in mind, folks, these are trained professionals, people who've seen, quite literally the worst humanity has to offer.
Yeah.
But in these cases, what they saw wasn't anything from a police manual, anything that they could have trained for in the police academy. it was something else entirely. Now, because I said the words police academy, I can't move forward past talking about, what's his name? Michael Winslow.
I was about to say.
That's his name,
Winslow,
right?
yeah.
Have you seen, and I'm sorry that I'm already kind of,
Driving away from the dock.
Driving away from the dock, taking us away from the topic. But, hey, we're kids of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Police Academy movies were a big part of our lives.
Oh.
Okay. And Michael Winslow, who was also in Spaceballs and everything, everybody knew him. The dude was the coolest.
Amazing.
Have you ever seen the footage when he does gosh, I forget what Led Zeppelin song it is. I think it's Whole Lot of Love.
Oh, where he does like the guitar
Dude,
sound?
he does the so there's a guy that's playing like an acoustic, okay? Winslow starts doing the drum beat.
Yeah.
He starts doing the lead guitar and the lead vocals. And dude,
Yeah.
folks, if you haven't seen that, you have to look it up on YouTube. It is amazing. It is so cool. And I always just thought he was just the best, man. What is it from Spaceballs when he's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did that pretty good, and I practiced that since the day that I saw that for the first time.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I know you folks were surprised by that.
No,
but okay.
no. I thought actually you were going to mention a clip. There's a clip that I saw where he was like replicating like Jimi Hendrix's like guitar sound or something. But
It's probably similar, yeah.
But it's wild, like
Yeah, it
distorted,
sounds
like
like
fuzz guitar, like
Yes.
it's amazing.
Fuzz guitar, and he does he knows exactly where to place the mic for like different sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. You got to go see it. But back to topic here. When I'm thinking about these folks, again, they're used to seeing, that's one of the reasons why selfishly, look, I love Columbo. I talk about that a lot on the show.
You do.
Detective work and all this kind of stuff. I think it's so cool. Batman is one of my favorite superheroes.
Oh,
He's
me
the
too.
world's greatest detective. The aspect of trying to figure out and solve a problem with the clues that you're given or even clues that you have to find yourself, that's just fascinating to me. However, in reality, I don't want to be walking in on some dead body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have the stomach for that. But imagine again, what if it was something that's not even from our reality, beyond the veil or, something?
Yeah.
There's no other thing that I think that we should do right now other than let's just get into it.
All right.
Our first story takes us to Gaffney, South Carolina. The year is 1966.
I love it.
I'm pretty sure that's the same year that Rubber Soul came out. You guys can fact check me.
Love it already.
It's about 4 a.m. and two officers, Officer Hutchins and Officer Husky,
There it is.
okay, are driving down a rural stretch of road called West Buford Street Extension. As they near a sharp bend in the road, their headlights catch something strange, something metallic, and it's hovering. The object is described as spherical with a wide, flat brim, no lights, no windows, just this silent, floating shape. Then it lowers to the ground. A small door opens up, a ladder drops down, and this white light spills out. And then out steps a figure. Now, let me pause for a second here, Tyler. Pretend that's you and me. We're on an old dirt road. What are you doing in that moment?
I'm kind of dumb when it comes to this. I've discovered I have a therapist that I speak with that has questioned my, I don't know what you would call it.
I don't know, impulse control. Or,
Not really.
decision-making ability.
A little bit.
I'm not the therapist.
Well,
but I'm just,
it's funny because there is like a component to where like there's certain things that I'm not afraid of that I've learned that like I should be. And so that's what I mean. Like I would, just like I did when that drone was like hovering, it's like I stopped my
Right.
car, I open the door and get out.
yeah.
So I would,
I feel like your fascination or your curiosity
like overrides
overrides any sort of defense mechanisms that we all have.
Yeah.
You know, I say all that folks have. You know, whereas mine is kind of the polar opposite.
Oh yeah.
In a bad way. I'm not saying that's a good thing. In fact, to be honest with you, I wish that I had a little sprinkle of the, you know, well, okay. Oh man. I mean, I guess that's one way to put it. Well, I mean, there's certain situations where I'm, you know, brave, you know, there's certain things that nothing would scare me. It's not about being scared. It's just, you know, man, I don't really want to know what's going on right now other than I'm going to put it in reverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because who knows, it was about to melt me with a ray gun. I mean, this is 1966, you know.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, if it was especially 66, I probably even more so would have wanted to check it out. Because we didn't know everything we know now. Like,
sure, but I feel like, yeah, maybe we're more desensitized about it all now. My reaction would be the same. I can't lie.
yeah.
There would be no difference. I'd be like, I'd probably be even more scared then. So the being itself was about the size of a 12-year-old boy, maybe 4 feet tall or so. No helmet, no gear, just this shiny metallic-looking gold suit with no zippers or buttons.
Oh, man, I love it.
The way it moved wasn't stiff or robotic. It just walked like a person, but just slower, like it was taking its time, calm, not afraid at all. Hutchins said that the creature spoke perfect English. Very deliberate, no accent, precise pronunciation. He asked questions, a lot of them actually, but he didn't answer any. When they asked him where he was from, he started laughing. Neither officer later could recall the full context of the conversation, but they both remembered the end of it. The little being looked at them and said,
I will return in 2 days.
Then it turned around, climbed the ladder, and the door shut behind him. They did say that the object emitted a soft whirring sound and slowly rose into the sky, eventually sort of vanishing into the darkness. A local councilman later found numerous footprints at the site, but the being never returned.
Wow.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
That's pretty awesome. So his suit was gold, you said, though?
Gold, yeah.
Interesting.
Now, what does this one to me immediately reminds me of the Falkville
Yeah.
middleman.
That's what I was thinking, too.
Right, in Alabama. For those of you that haven't heard about that incident,
Yeah.
you can hear it on our episode here.
Hear more about this story on That Would Be Rad, Season 2, Episode 2, The Falkville Metal Man.
And similar kind of thing, you know. But again, it's like when this is something, I don't know, and maybe it's naive of me, maybe it's a reflection and or I guess I don't know. Maybe it's because we grew up in the 80s, but it's like, you know, we grew up with Fred McGruff, you know, we whenever there's a police report,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to trust what they're saying, you know? And so there's that added, because this is, you know, one of those incidents, of course, that any kind of skeptic about anything like this wouldn't be like, first, UFOs and aliens don't exist.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are just making it up.
I mean, I feel like, by 66, they would have had. So here's something to where, like, I feel like my thoughts have changed since the beginning. Originally, I thought, like, okay, all these really cool sort of encounters from the 60s, this would have been, like, the first time they were, like, seeing things. But because of the show and, like, the research and stuff, I feel like a lot of that stuff they would have already seen in, like, you know, like 50s sci-fi. So they would kind of have an idea, you know, whether it was like a hoax or whether it was whatever it was, I feel like they would at least know, like, okay, this is probably something not from our world. You know, they would kind of already know what like a foreign spacecraft would look like, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting too, because whenever looking at it through our more modern lens in 2025, when you say the word hoax, I'm thinking like all the way up to this is somebody in a made thing. They have the capability of making it look real. The kid comes out, messes with these cops, gets back in and quote unquote flies away.
Yeah.
Back then, though, it's like for it to be a hoax, it would mean that they just fabricated the story.
Massive
you know what I mean?
amount. Yeah, right.
Instead of like having the capability of having some fake craft or something.
Yeah, it's far more plausible that they would it's just two guys making it up. But I will say this, and this is something that I'm probably stealing from you, and you're probably already going to talk about, before it's over. But one thing about these stories, especially with like law enforcement and military and stuff like that, is 99% of the time, these people, if they even filed reports, MUFON did a thing years ago that was, it did some kind of, year long, several years long, like survey to where, they would get like law enforcement people and then they would ask like, okay, well, would you report this? And the answer was always no. So like, I feel like the ones that we do know about are like so rare because they know they're going to be ridiculed and their sanity is going to be questioned. They're, are they in some sort of cognitive decline? Are they, have they lost their mind? Are they making this up? Are they lying? Are they? So you kind of got to give, tip your hat to like the ones that we do know because most people, I would imagine, would just never report it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in some way, like you said, it's going to affect their job in some way. Whether that is
it's not going to be
people
good.
making fun of them all the no, it's not going to be good.
Yeah,
man. People are going to think you're crazy.
Yep.
And I don't know.
I mean, there's one famous one, and again, I don't know if you're even going to talk about it, but there's one where like a guy, I think he's like a state patrol officer, and he like follows a craft like all through the town.
That might be the one I'm about to talk about.
Okay,
actually,
okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so this next one, it happens the following year. It's 1967. This time it's in Ashland, Nebraska.
Oh, I was going to say, because he said 2 years. Is this?
Oh, no, he said 2 days.
Oh, 2 days. That's right. That's right. Sorry.
So this young state trooper named Herbert Schirmer.
I think this is
only like 22 years old. Again, man, when I think about, when I was 22, we were just about to kick off the modern society, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's a few months away. And so this kid, basically, that's when you know you're old, when you can call a 22-year-old a kid.
Yeah,
That's what they are.
But he probably already had like 4 kids and...
he's got he looks like he's 50, but
For
you know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's patrolling these roads in the dead of the night, okay? He's actually out responding to some livestock disturbances. Locals think that it's probably just, a predator of some kind. But what Schirmer encountered was far stranger. So he spots what he initially thinks is a truck blocking the road. But as he approaches, he realizes it's no truck. It's a glowing football-shaped craft hovering above the road. Around the circumference of this craft, there are red-lighted portholes.
I love it.
This kind of reminds me of one of the other ones that we've talked about before. I'll get to that at the end. Suddenly, it shoots off into the night in a fiery flash. Now, that might have been the end of it, except Schirmer later underwent hypnosis. Under hypnosis, Schirmer remembers a very different version of events. So just to recap, he's out on patrol. There's disturbances with livestock. He pulls up. He thinks there's a truck blocking the road. But what he realizes is there's this big football-shaped craft in the middle of the road with these red portholes, okay? And then it just flies off, and that's all he remembers. Now he's hypnotized, and he's remembering a lot more. Immediately, this screams, what is it called? Screen memories or,
big time.
Memory deletion, basically, lost time. So in his memories, the object didn't vanish. It actually moved to a nearby field and landed on 3 legs.
Oh, man.
His patrol car's radio, lights, and engine failed simultaneously. In other words, maybe like an EMP or something.
Every time.
Beings approached his car. Here's where I have chills.
Yeah.
He was paralyzed. One of the beings sprayed the car with greenish gas. Another shined a bright light on him, and he passed out. It's impossible not to think of
The one where he climbs the tree.
Yeah. And we'll get to it at the end. The beings themselves were humanoid in shape, but alien in appearance. They had gray-white skin, thin, elongated heads, flat noses, little slit mouths, and slanted, unblinking eyes. They stood about 4.5 to 5 feet tall. They wore silvery gray uniforms, boots, gloves, and helmets with small antennas. On their chests was an emblem of a winged serpent.
Oh, man.
This is getting, right?
Yeah, how have we never heard of this?
Yeah, dude. Jeez. And so it was a winged, of a winged serpent, and it was over its left breast. This is a straight up uniform that this thing's wearing. Okay, he eventually comes to, and he steps out of his vehicle. The leader of this little group asks him if he was the watchman. Then he was invited aboard their ship. Again, a ladder descends from this craft, and he goes inside. Inside, there's this cold metallic room about 20 by 26 feet with these 6-foot-tall ceilings and strip lighting. The room has chairs, a control panel, and a viewing screen. He was shown an engine with a crystalline rotor connected to 2 columns. Then a device resembling a tape player was used to transfer data directly into his mind while the leader communicated through telepathy and broken English. They claimed to come from another galaxy, but had bases that were set up within our solar system, some underwater and in the polar regions. They used electromagnetic propulsion and drew power from water. Their mission? To prepare humanity for eventual open contact and to confuse us in the meantime. Shermer saw images on a viewing screen. Other beings guarding the ship, crafts flying through space, and a large mothership. Eventually, the being told him to forget what he saw and led him back to his patrol car. The ship lifted off, and Shermer was left feeling sick, weak, a buzzing in his ears. And this is interesting. He eventually left law enforcement entirely. And he also refused to reveal everything about the experience. Some things, he said, were better left unsaid.
Wow.
There's just so much to unpack in this one.
Yeah.
I tell you what, let's take a quick break. When we get back, let's talk about this one a little bit more, and then we're going to dive into some more just absolutely off-the-wall, crazy stories that these police officers are telling, man. It's just,
they're really rad.
Awesome.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no dead.
Hey, this is Woody.
And this is Tyler. And you're listening to That Would Be Rad.
And now, back to our show. Okay, so first, let's talk about the case that this reminds us of, which is the
Cisco Grove.
Cisco Grove, that's it. Listeners, if you are new to the show or you accidentally missed that one, you can hear that episode here.
Hear more about this rad strangeness on That Would Be Rad, Season 4, Episode 26, Aliens in the Forest, the Cisco Grove Incident.
Fascinating tale, but that's what this reminds me of, like the portholes in the ship, the fact that, and you know what, you want to know, when did that, Cisco.
67. Oh, when was
1964, September 1964.
Oh man.
So
That's awesome.
we're in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And according to the leader or whatever, telling him that this is just part of the plan to sort of slowly introduce.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear that kind of stuff in these circumstances and these events or whatever,
yeah,
I'm always curious, their timing. I don't know, of course, to assume that it's all true, this report, in other words,
mm-hmm.
I always wonder, like, are they just kind of like pacing, you know what I mean? Like this slow introduction,
right.
Does the frequency increase? Does it, stay pretty steady?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I love like any of like the UFO crafts, like with like portholes.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that takes me back to like, I mean, there's some with portholes, like obviously in like the 60s and 70s, but it kind of reminds me more of like some of like the 20s and like the early 1900s where, it would look like a small Italian man coming out in like a jumpsuit, or like the anchor, they would drop the anchor down.
Yeah.
Like those were amazing. And then they would ask like a farmer for like some water, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I kind of remember, what's the one in, was it Arkansas or Alabama? Where it crashed.
And then crashed into the well or whatever, possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's dive into, whoops. We didn't even mention.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing, before you get to that one, the other thing that reminds me of Cisco Grove was the fact that these beings,
the gas,
had gas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, and it's interesting too, because like, so they spray the gas, and then, I don't know, due to the gas or like some sort of screen memory sort of mechanics, or maybe it's like all part of the same thing.
Right.
Maybe the gas like knocks somebody out, but also sort of refills in those blanks, in your memory. But yeah, it definitely feels like Cisco Grove. It also reminded me of a case about a guy named Lonnie Zamora that happened in, again, 1964. Where did this case take place again?
This was in Nebraska.
Okay, well, this one is in New Mexico. And he's basically like a police officer or like state patrol, and kind of the same thing. He sees this like craft like take off into the sky with like a blue and orange flame. And like he says originally he thought like it was something like an explosion or something, but it was really just this craft like taking off. And, he followed it like for a long, long way. And, like I said before, like he faced a ton of like ridicule, which really sucks, because it's like, I don't know. I mean,
it does a couple of things. It encourages people to keep that kind of stuff to themselves.
Right.
Which unfortunately leads to unreported things,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Out of all of these, yes, there's probably a percentage that is just absolutely fiction and made up. And then think about the percentage of it, though, of stories that just never get told.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a quick trip across the ocean. This story occurs in El Pedroso, Spain.
Man, your homeland.
España. Barcelona. Okay.
Barcelona.
Let's fast forward in time as well. It's 1976.
Okay.
A small town in Sevilla, Spain. Okay? Picture this. It's a crisp day. The kind of day perfect for a hunting trip. And that's exactly what these 3 local police officers and a professor were out there to do. Just a bunch of guys, probably joking around, loading up their gear, talking about the señoritas.
Oh, yeah.
ready to spend a day in nature. But their plans were about to take a hard turn into what the heck territory. As they drove along a winding rural road, they rounded a curve and they suddenly came upon something. Standing right in front of them was this huge figure. I don't just mean tall. This thing was about 2 meters tall. So for those of you that don't use the metric system, like myself,
Yeah, same.
over 6.5 feet. And it wasn't just standing there, folks. It was hovering just off the ground, suspended in the air like it didn't care about things like gravity or laws of physics. Its appearance, equally as strange. It wore this shiny white outfit that made it stand out starkly against this natural landscape. Its facial features weren't clearly visible. They were either obscured by the light, the outfit, or maybe it just didn't have any in the way we understand. But one detail was clear. It had this belt with a rectangular buckle on it, and from that buckle emitted this bright rectangular light. Now, just right there, already, it's super, well, I mean, terrifying and also just weird. You know, it's the middle of the day. I don't know that I would be scared. Well, I don't know. Somebody hovering in the middle of the road that large, I'd probably be scared. Or freaked out, I should say.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, brave and ready to fight it. Okay. Just in case anybody was doubting my bravery, I just wanted to say that. Okay, but then, and this is kind of like visually, this would be an awesome scene in a movie. One of the men looked into the rearview mirror and saw something behind them, of course. Parked on the ground not too far away was this huge, brilliant, oval-shaped object. It was just sitting there silently, not doing anything, just glowing with this dim, uniform light.
And what time in the day is this?
It's just
like middle of the day?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just making, you said it's like glowing. I'm making sure it wasn't like early morning. Or,
no. So then again, it's just like, imagine seeing that out there in the middle of nowhere, totally out of place. You know, you're in the Spanish countryside. It's just sitting there like it belonged. Now they've got this figure floating in front of them and a glowing landed object behind them. It doesn't take too long before sort of fear begins to override curiosity. Again, my reaction versus, you know, Tyler's is curiosity overrides fear.
Run.
Mine is fear overrides curiosity. But these guys are cops and, you know, a professor. So he's probably, his curiosity's peaked pretty good.
Yeah.
But immediately they just were like, nope. And they got out of there. They ditched the hunting trip altogether and took off, no questions asked. Now,
and real quick, was this thing was floating like right in the middle of the road?
Right in the middle of the road, bro.
See, that's weird.
Mm-hmm. So just that's what I'm saying. Imagine you've got you make this turn. Maybe you just, you know, you're distracted. You miss the fact that there's a craft, maybe at an angle that you couldn't have seen when you passed.
Right.
But you come around this bend and there's just somebody there, just like floating in the middle of the, you know, street, and there's this bright beam of light coming from its belt buckle.
Man, I mean, it's got to be a different case, or it would tell. But, dude, this is almost exactly like one of those cases that we ran across in the Babindom, the Michelin Man cases. And it did say like a white outfit, but I feel like if it were the same case, it would clearly say like, you know.
Yeah, it seems like this guy was like a little bit more like slender.
Normal
in
size.
Description. Yeah. And, you know, what's crazy about this case is that essentially because they just pieced out and, you know, got the heck out of Dodge, that's kind of where it ends. But that's kind of the thing I love the most about this story, though, because of how quiet and unnerving it is. There isn't a creature trying to tell them about their plans or invite them into a craft. It's just this strange thing that spooked all four of those dudes. And you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that like four guys in the car would be like, nope, turn it around.
Yeah. And 3 of them being police officers. You know, off duty, but still, it's like...
I wonder what the belt buckle thing was.
The only thing that I could think of initially, but then I was reminding myself, it's Spain, not South Texas, would have been, just a, hey, that guy rides bulls, man. No, but all kidding aside, I don't know. And why is he levitating? What's going on here, man?
Also, it does feel like there's an aspect to this that feels intentional if you're just floating above the road.
Yeah.
It's like you're sort of awaiting traffic. You know that there's going to be...
Or maybe like re-energizing, you know?
I mean, maybe
that's how they charge up. I don't know, man.
There is like a road they built in the Netherlands that can charge up. I don't mean
to make fun, but...
Your cell phones.
No. I never really have heard it pronounced that way. In the Netherlands.
Well, that's how I say it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where are you from, man? The Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
Where the land of the nether.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Let's head back to, not really our neck of the woods, but our northern cousins here. All right. This one is short, but really weird. It almost feels like a dream sequence, actually, and it happened in Ventnor, New Jersey. Jersey. And in the same year as the last story, actually, 1976, must have been a crazy time for folks. So the report comes from 2 very different but reliable sources. Officer Frank Ingargiola and Sonny Schwartz, may the Schwartz be with you, who just happened to be a newspaper reporter.
Okay.
These weren't some randos out on fishing for headlines or whatever. One's a cop, the other's this, respected journalist. And the 2 of them were out in Ventnor, which I didn't know this until I looked it up, but it's a beach town right next to Atlantic City. So there's that, sort of boardwalk vibe, the ocean, the lights. And to me, man, I don't know. There's a lot of places that if I was going to make a UFO movie, the obvious would be, the North Georgia woods.
Right.
But, dude, an Atlantic City type boardwalk vibe, I kind of like that idea. You know what I mean?
I mean, but you already have like the Jersey Devil, and the Pine Barrens up there.
Yeah, true.
Which is like pretty vast.
Yeah. All right, so they're just cruising near the boardwalk when they spot something in the sky. Now, not a shooting star, not a plane. I'm talking about this spherical, white, luminous object, and it's surrounded by this bright haze, like it's glowing from within, and it's just floating there. Silently above the sea. Just like all these things, it gets weirder. So they realize that this thing is following them. It's tracking them as they move, not darting around like some erratic drone, but gliding with purpose. Like it's keeping watch. And while they're processing that, something or someone appears in front of their car. Emerging from this haze and this glow is this very tall man with broad shoulders. He's lurching down the boardwalk in front of their car like something out of a, David Lynch film or a fever dream. He's wearing this 3/4 suede coat, which I know it's pretty specific here, but
yeah.
And here we go. I'm a fan of this guy already, and it's a 10-gallon Stetson hat.
Nice.
Now,
if only he had the belt buckle from the last one.
That's what I'm saying, man. These guys are in the same, they're from the same place here. And if that's not weird enough, other police officers start to arrive on the scene. Maybe they were called in by, Ingargiola, or maybe they saw the object themselves. Either way, multiple cops are now on location, and they witness the same thing. They witness this strange glowing orb hovering, and then again this lone, massive cowboy figure just strolling through it all like he belonged there.
Man, that's cool.
What's kind of weird to me, though, is that nobody tries to approach this guy. Nobody knows where he went. There's no record of him speaking, just this slow-motion dream sequence almost playing out on the boardwalk. There's an orb cowboy, suede coat, and a bunch of New Jersey cops kind of scratching their heads.
Huh.
And you know, in a way, again, kind of like the previous story in Spain, I kind of love the simplicity of it, but it's impossible for me not to kind of
be like, why didn't you look into it more? Why
maybe
didn't
here's the thing. Maybe they did, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Maybe that's all like screen memory.
That's it. It was
stuff,
erased.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only thing they remember, and poof, gone. Now, if this is like the early 80s or something, I'd say, well, maybe they just liked Dallas a lot. And,
yeah.
You know, but.
And by the way, what does it mean 3/4? Does that mean like almost like a blazer?
Suede.
Like a 70s suede blazer?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah. Wild, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. We got a couple more that I want to hit, but let's take another quick break. And when we get back, this one is going to kind of, now we're in our wheelhouse in terms of timeline. This happens in 1990, this next one, in Puerto Rico.
Very nice.
We'll return after these messages.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
It's a pretty cool place if you're a Martian.
Or a vampire. You think you really know what's happening around here, don't you? Is anyone out there? We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
Hey, this is Woody.
And this is Tyler. And you're listening to That Would Be Rad.
And now, back to our show.
Man, I really thought that it was I really did think that you were just like repeating that Michelin Man one, because it's
really?
almost exactly.
You know, it's so funny, man, when we talk about all these different cases and stuff, not only is it just easy to find the similarities between them, but sometimes I'm like, man, have we talked about this one? Or
oh yeah, constantly.
How have we not? You know, there's just so many of these. This one, I don't know. There's something about maybe this one that kind of, this next one anyway, rings a bell, but I think it's maybe I've just read it. And here's another thing I like about all of these stories so far, folks. I don't know about you, but this reminds me of those early 90s to mid 90s nights where you're just like, There's nothing else on. Ooh, I'll pop in a tape of some recorded Unsolved Mysteries episodes. You know what I mean? All these stories have that vibe to me.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now on to the next one. This one's got that classic late night police patrol vibe. Quiet, probably boring, until it suddenly isn't. This time we're in Puerto Rico. It's 1990, and we're at the Lajas Airport. Okay? Now, Lajas Airport just sounds like, okay, cool, it happens at an airport. But it's not just an airport, okay? This is where they stored this massive radar blip, and it was under constant police watch. This is a high-security area, military-adjacent, strategic surveillance, all that stuff. So you can imagine the kind of routine security they had in place. Guys in uniforms, patrols, the whole deal. Now, just breaking out of this real quick, it's a pretty common thing, actually, right? That large military bases have reported strange encounters.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the
Big
world.
time. Yeah.
So again, it's nighttime. Everything's kind of quiet and calm. One of the officers on duty is patrolling near this concrete platform where the radar blimp, I should say. Sorry, I think I said blip earlier.
Yeah, that's
blimp is what I was talking about. Okay, this radar blimp is anchored, and from a distance, he sees what he thinks are children playing. I'm already, come on. Why they got to be like little freaky little? Okay.
Yeah.
So these little figures are running around where they absolutely shouldn't be, on this military platform. So naturally, he rolls up in his patrol car and hits them with a spotlight. And this is when the scene flips into rad strangeness.
Nice.
Because when the beam hits him, what he sees aren't kids. Instead, he's now looking at several small, grayish figures, each about 3 to 3.5 feet tall, with these oversized heads. He describes them as strange-looking beings, not human, more like those classic, quote, grays from alien lore. And again, the moment that light hits them, they scatter like rats. These little beings take off in different directions, moving really fast, and the officer immediately calls for backup. He doesn't just call it in casually. He uses the police code 1050, which means officer needs assistance. So whatever he saw spooked him enough to hit that panic button, so to speak.
Yeah.
This isn't just like, hey, I got some, I got some kids over here messing around, playing on base. I need somebody to come help me gather them all up. No. Officer needs assistance. He's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now more officers arrive on the scene, but by the time they get there, the beings are sort of long gone. They end up searching the entire area thoroughly, flashlights, vehicles, the whole deal. But nothing turned up. It's almost as if they just vanished into the night. Now, a few days later, another group of police officers, same location, spot a UFO. This one, though, is shaped like a top. Like the old kid's toy, right? Oh, and it's round, I say that because I don't even think, I'm sure my kids know what a top is. They used to play with them when they were a little bit younger, but I just, you don't see a whole lot of kids playing with tops.
No.
And it's surrounded by this glowing, almost golden aura. This thing came extremely close to landing right on premises, right where the blimp. I keep on saying blimp. Weird. I'm like, right where the blimp.
I thought it sounded fun.
Close to the landing, right on where the blimp was anchored. And then the next day, right where the UFO was seen nearly touching down, officers discover a mysterious circle burned into the ground. Not like a crop circle situation, okay? In other words, this wasn't just like a circle that where maybe like some heat had burned some grass. Folks, we're talking about, this is on concrete and gravel.
Yeah, right.
Something left a mark there. And this is kind of where it gets a little unsettling and even very kind of cover up adjacent here, because shortly after the circle was discovered, a bulldozer was brought in to erase it.
every time.
Yeah. They literally scraped off the topsoil and removed the area where the circle had been. Now, let me ask you this, dude. Do you think this is damage control?
Oh, yeah, for
you
sure.
know, or is this maybe they did know what it was and they were, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I think there's actually a few of these where they would leave like burn marks, and then, you know, some unidentified group would come in. Yeah, it's just like a cover-up thing.
Because, you know, we talk about Men in Black and things like that coming in and, you know, sort of securing the area and getting rid of evidence and stuff. But typically when we hear those encounters, it's with Men in Black, we're talking about on the civilian side.
Yeah.
Not, you know, somebody's coming in and getting rid of evidence on base. You know what I mean?
No, there's a few of those like where you would have, you know, especially, I can't think of the names, but I know that there's a few where like military police officers, you know, would kind of see something or whatever, and then they would be sort of checked by like, oh, no, we're much higher than you, you know, step aside. And then they come in and then, because they're not at like the level of, you know.
Clearance or whatever.
Clearance, yeah.
What's weird about this one to me is, you know, the first night, he sees these weird beings that he thinks are kids because, again, your brain is only going to sort of show you, you know, based on your own experience, life experience, you know. You're trying to rationalize something that looks strange in your mind, and he thinks it's kids, but it's just, he hits them with the high beam. And
that's so bizarre.
Yeah, dude. You can visualize it happening too. I don't know about you, but it's like I immediately picture these little bitty children-sized beings just being like, and like running off when the light hits them.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, it's like, you know, did mom and dad come to pick them up?
Yeah, that's interesting. For some odd reason, I have like the same imagery in my head when I think of like the melon heads, like that urban legend.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, what's weird to me though is anytime, I don't know what's more scary to me, or I would say like just freaky, because the contrast between these stories where one is just like this big, huge figure, 6.5 feet tall, versus these little 3.5 foot tall beings. Which one would scare you more? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I mean, we've talked a lot about, you know, especially in reference to like the Greys, to where, you know, these people in these like abductee sort of scenarios, they talk about how like, oh, well, there were 3 little ones, and then there was like one that was like a foot taller that was like the leader. So it does kind of make you wonder, like, is there like some sort of hierarchy, and does size matter, you know?
Yeah, do aliens also make fun of you if you're short? Okay. Just don't worry about my PTSD from like, you know, between kindergarten and 8th grade. Shortest kid on the team.
Dude,
Anyway.
I was really short too, actually, when I was little. Yeah.
I was, no joke, 8th grade, I played football, and I was the shortest kid on the 8th grade team and the 7th grade team. Shortest kid out there. Loved it, though.
Yeah, it took me a while. It took me till like 9th grade to get up to 6'2", as tall as I am now.
6'2", dude. You are so full of it, man. God. Anyway, okay.
Real quick, can I like interject a little bit?
Yeah. Please do.
I, for some reason, thought that Puerto Rico and Brazil were closer to one another, but they're actually like 4,000 miles apart.
Right. And I think this is another time where we point out that the history award in Tyler's private school was far different than like the geography award, which was given to another kid. I should say another kid. I should say the other kid that went to that school.
Okay. Well, I failed geography.
Right.
No. But for some reason I was thinking, but I mean, this was like 90s.
But also, dude, you're thinking in relative terms of our own travel. Now, when you're coming in from another potential galaxy,
that's true.
Or dimension, you know, the hop, skip, and a jump from Brazil and Puerto Rico isn't the big deal.
Right. Well, it reminds me of a case that we've already talked about doing, and for some reason, I think we were gonna do it, and then it got like pushed off. But
We just get distracted.
Well, no, I think actually a like a documentary came out, and we were like, no, we got to wait to see it. Was that the, what is it? The Colares, Brazil cases? Remember it, like the UFOs, they called them like chupas or chupa-chupas or something?
Oh, yeah.
And my theory was that that's where the nope concept of like the UFO being like
a living
the
being,
actual being. Yeah, and they were like, they said that they were like vampires.
Alert.
Huh?
Spoiler alert.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it, for some reason, it reminded me of that sort of thing. But I think that was like back in the like 60s, maybe.
Well, now I'm super curious. I remember you mentioning or us talking about this documentary, but is it just one of those documentaries that
I don't know? I don't.
And when you do, it's just all in Spanish, and you're like, man, I got to break it.
No. I think it was like a maybe not Jeremy Corbell, but I think he is like in it, maybe or something.
Okay. Oh, maybe.
So it's like
see it. Okay,
a bigger one, yeah.
Pero yo hablo español, so it's no problem. Anyway, okay, moving on. This next story happens not too long ago, pal. So now we're jumping kind of way forward, and we'll kind of go back in time a little bit later, but we're talking about August 2017. So now we're in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
The southwest part of the state, and it's rural. Now,
right by the water.
It's wooded, quiet. And this particular police officer, who's never been named for obvious reasons, is out on patrol at night. He's just driving through one of these long, dark roads in the middle of nowhere. No houses, no lights, just trees and shadows. And then he sees something strange and, to me, horrific. At first, it's just this silvery sheen of light low to the ground. Nothing too alarming. Maybe some moonlight catching on some mist or reflection off a wet surface. But as he gets closer, he realizes that this silvery light is actually emanating from something. And it's not just anything. It's coming from what looks like a ball of light. And as he kind of begins to focus and really kind of strain and sort of begin to kind of put two and two together, he realizes it's not a ball of light, but the head of a creature. A full-bodied, upright thing standing in the woods. Let me just say that again. Okay. This police officer sees a creature that's 6 feet plus tall with a glowing, spherical head.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just a sphere that's floating. This thing, this sphere, basically, it's got a body.
Yeah,
it's
right,
tall,
right.
thin, described as almost skeletal. The officer gets this sense that when he first saw it, the creature had been sort of lying on its belly, facing the road, and had only just gotten up. So now it's standing there, facing the road, facing him. And this is kind of where it gets a little bit more surreal here. The glow from the head isn't bright like a flashlight. It's dull. Like this eerie, soft white light, just enough to illuminate the upper part of its body, the shoulders, the chest, the arms. You can't really see the legs. There's just too much darkness around. But he assumes that it's bipedal. And then the creature turns. First to the right, the glow casting a weird shimmer on its shoulder, and then back toward the officer's direction. Then again, it turns to the left, and then just takes off. And not just running, dude. It takes off at this, like, impossible speed. The officer said it was so fast that it was there 1 second, and then gone the next. He described the movement as abnormal, faster than anything he'd ever seen. And again, this guy's a cop. He's chased down people. This isn't 1976. This is 2017. He knows what fast looks like. And this wasn't it. This was something else entirely. Now, once again, the officer pulls up to the exact spot where he saw it. He turns on his spotlight, gets out, checks the area. Nothing, no tracks, no disturbed ground, no heat signature, no movement, just the cold, quiet woods as if it had never happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like just one of those cases where it just somebody sort of stumbles upon like these creatures that we're not meant to see. You know, they was just maybe like taking a break, just resting. And so maybe his like sort of quote unquote like cloaking was like off, you know, and then he's like, oh, you know, he like a lot of these encounters, it's like he knew when he was like being looked at, and suddenly he's like, oh, I gotta get out of here.
Well, here's what's crazy, dude. Okay, so the officer reportedly couldn't get this image out of his mind, this head, the glowing orb just sitting atop this lanky gray body and then disappearing into the trees.
That's so cool.
Check this out, though. This is one of those instances. I love it when this happens. Stan Gordon himself.
Yep.
And for folks that haven't heard that name, he's this well-known paranormal researcher and investigator, and especially around the Pennsylvania area, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He actually investigated this case personally and said that the officer was 100% legit, no nonsense, sober, trained, and totally wrecked by what he saw.
Wow.
When I read this one, I thought about, man, my son and I go camping a fair amount. And I think about, myself in those situations. And then it got me wondering too, like, what do you think it was? Was it a Bigfoot with a hat on? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The glowing though, that feels.
And it didn't
feels
mention
like
any
else.
hair, It's just big. It's wild, man.
But I mean, I wonder if he was like kind of far off and like, it with the thing, like, even if it was kind of like dull, glowing, maybe it, he couldn't really see what the rest of the body was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. And I mean, I hate to do it after every story, but let's say that you're doing the same thing. This time, though, I'm gonna kind of change the scenario and see if it would change.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you and your family are like in a car. You guys are doing the Great American Road Trip. Okay, You're heading up. You're in the Pennsylvania wilderness, and this is what you see. The scene exactly. Let's say it's like late night. It took you too long to drive up there. Kind of like that time we drove all the way from Chicago back to Georgia. You've been driving all day. You're tired, and this is what you see in the middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Do you inch closer? Do you stay in your car? Do you kind of just like stop where you're at? Are you getting out of the car?
No. For something like this, I don't know. There's something that just feels very. What's the word that I would use? Like something about like the head glowing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, even though I've sort of seen like orbs close up, and I feel differently about them, with something like this, it just feels more sort of like powerful.
Yeah.
In a weird way. I definitely would not get out of the car, but I probably would stop and just like keep looking. But if it started coming toward me,
yeah. What do you do?
I mean, it depends on if my family was in the car.
Right, of course.
Again, I feel like
that was kind of an unfair like thing to throw at you, but because I figured, okay, now what we're doing is we're like measuring, in real time for everybody to hear. Yeah. You won't sacrifice your family's safety. That good.
Yeah.
I can check that box.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, if my family's in the car, forget it. I'm just hitting the gas, man. I'm running it over. Not really. I'm kidding. I would be, I think if I was by myself in a car,
run it over.
I would stop. No, I would stop, and I would be just kind of like, okay, if it starts running after me? Yeah, man, ramming speed at that point. But I don't know. To me, all of these cases have sort of the same amount of potential danger.
Right.
Because whether it's something small coming out of a craft, come on in, freaky.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's always that, I don't know, man, naive, my tendency to really want everything to be just like, they're friendly.
Right.
And maybe that's because I'm in the ET generation, whatever. I want them to be good guys, and I want it to be like our fear is what's stoking this sort of thought that they're evil and all this because we don't know what they are. Selfishly, I just want them to be like not mean and, come check out our ship, forget about the probing stuff.
Well, see, what's funny is like that you went there, like, you're talking like overall with like all these cases, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure, yes. And then of course, like, look, something like this, if it's more like an animal type thing, yeah, like I'm not gonna, just like I wouldn't if that was a tiger, for example. I might approach it in my car. Of course, I know what a tiger can do. Same like maybe a bear or something. Oh, perfect example. You go to Yellowstone, you are not one of those idiots that gets too close to the bears, and now the park ranger has to, spray them because these idiots want to get out and take a picture super close to the bear. That's not what you would do.
When we were at, it was Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bears, but it was like these giant bison, which are just gorgeous, buffalo, very like American, kind of thing. It just, I don't know, it invokes this like feeling of like, wow, this is like what the Indians saw, kind of thing. But we're like way far away. I mean, still close.
Sure.
As far as like being able to see these things, which was amazing. But the park ranger comes like, just like, flying by on this dirt road with his like sirens on. He has to stop. He has to go out. And he has like his megaphone. And we didn't even notice this, but like there's like, and this isn't a racist thing, but there are these Asian tourists that are like coming up around like behind them that are within like 20 feet. And it's like, what are you people doing?
Yeah.
Like, I think they think that like, oh, this is like a park. It's like they kind of consider it like, this is where tourists go, like Disney. It's like a entertainment,
Yeah, they don't apply the same level of
danger.
Yeah. They think, oh, there's going to be a fence or something. It's not a zoo, right? You're in the middle of wild. It's kind of like those, it's not a drive-through safari where animals are just like tranked all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
This is the real thing. There's footage of people who, I think that I saw some video of some guy who's like holding his little baby, trying to get close to one of these grizzly bears. And it's like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yeah,
so that's what I'm
wild.
saying. I'm saying as much as you say you would get out and try to look at it, I don't, I think.
That's if I was by myself, though.
Well, even if you were by yourself, dude, you're not getting out to see a bear.
No.
And I think that you would apply that same level of, sure, yes, you'd be curious, but also like there's still that like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what capabilities it has or how powerful physically it would be.
Right.
And I think the question that I asked earlier where I was like, okay, I don't know what's scarier, a 3.5 foot tall like group of creatures or one, 6.5 foot tall thing. I'd have to say in terms of like intimidation factor, the larger creature would take the prize there. But then in terms of just like weird, creepy vibes.
Yeah, right. Although there is like something about this last case that you're talking about that like, this is going to sound like pretty far out. Actually, it's not going to sound far out because we travel on this road quite a bit for our regular listeners. But like, there's something about it that just, especially in the way that he described this thing, like, it appeared to be like kind of laying on its side and then like standing up. To me, and it's, it may sound weird, but to me, my mind immediately went to like some sort of like elemental, some sort of fae thing. Like maybe it's actually like a crown that's glowing, like some sort of ancient kind of like being or deity or, lower G God kind of thing.
Right.
And for some odd reason, like funnily enough, to me, that's a lot more scary than like little grays running around.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this.
Because it's like ancient and it's like.
Right. To me, it's kind of like that same, when we talked about the Harlequin in that episode, which if you haven't listened to that one, you can listen to it here.
Hear more about this rad strangeness on That Would Be Rad, Season 1, Episode 8. Night of the Harlequin.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's like scary to me.
Yeah, that old earth kind of, and then
Right.
the guy that describes like the smells of. We all have those things that we recognize if you've spent any time, even a small amount in nature. You know, people talk about the smell of fresh cut grass or the way it smells after it rains, kind of thing.
Right.
When you start mixing in those with like dirt and the musty smell of an ancient, ground. I don't know. You know what I mean? You walk into somebody's old, it's not really a basement. You know, some of those old houses that were built in the early 1900s, they had those crawl spaces that were
we had
larger,
one
sort of larger than crawl spaces. You know, you can't really call it a basement, but you can kind of stand hunched over in there. But that smell, do you know what I'm talking about? It's like
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Mix that into this story, and it's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about it in that light.
Yeah.
And that does, for some reason that is a lot scarier than it being like, it's just Bigfoot with a headlamp.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's still bizarre though. Like just you just picture like a miniature like moon on this tall skeletal being's body.
Right.
You know, or something like that. It's just, I don't know. It's bizarre, but yeah.
Whew. Okay. Before we go, I got one more story because you can't, we've talked about aliens. We talked about a weird glowing head creature. We talked about UFOs. You can't get out of here without at least one Bigfoot story. We tried to bring them up already.
Yeah, give it to me,
Okay.
champ.
Now, this is Whitehall, New York, 1976. Now, for a lot of folks, this case might sound familiar because apparently it's one of the most famous Bigfoot encounters ever reported by law enforcement.
I was going to say Whitehall. This sounds really familiar. Yeah.
So, this little town sits right near the border with Vermont, and it's surrounded by thick forests, remote stretches of road, and plenty of places for something strange to hide. If you're not from the New York area, let's say you're, down south like Tyler and I, or out west or something, when you think of New York, the first thing that pops in your head is New York City, right?
Yeah, right.
And, growing up, that's all I ever thought of New York. And even like Pennsylvania, you think of Detroit. You're not thinking of these places being wooded in any way. You're just thinking of skyscrapers and stuff. And so I'm just putting that out there because New York State is a big state, and it's got a lot of, different landscape. And in this area, it's very remote. And Officer Brian Gosselin, he's out on patrol.
It's Ryan Gosling's dad.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's grandpa or something. No, I guess dad would, 1976. All right.
Yeah.
He's out on patrol. He's driving down, alone, of course, this remote area called a Bear Road. And it's one of those long, empty country roads that, the kind that's just barely lit by your headlights and makes you instinctively sort of lock the doors even if you're not alone. And he's driving along, minding his own business, and all of a sudden this massive, hairy, man-like creature comes lumbering out of the woods just 30 feet in front of his patrol car. Of course, this guy's stunned immediately. This thing isn't just big, it's enormous. He estimates it to be about 7 or 8 feet tall.
Wow.
Weighing around 400 pounds. It's not walking like a bear, not crawling. It's upright, humanoid, and it's giant. So what does he do? Well, he takes a play right out of Tyler's playbook, and he gets out of his car.
Yeah.
And he steps out, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other, and he shines the beam right at this thing. And it just stands there, kind of frozen in the light. And then, without warning, the creature lets out this unearthly shriek. Not a bear growl, not a human scream, something other. Something that, according to Gosselin, he couldn't even properly describe. It was alien in every sense of the word. Then it turns and barrels off into the trees, vanishing into the woods and into the darkness. When Gosselin approaches the area where it disappeared, he finds these giant footprints stamped in the nearby field. Now here's the kicker. And thank goodness, Gosselin wasn't the only one to see it.
Nice.
In the days that followed, other officers in the area reported seeing the same creature. And it didn't stop there. Gosselin's own father and brother had sightings as well. This wasn't just a one-time event or a single guy seeing something. Whatever was roaming these woods, it was real enough to be seen by multiple trained witnesses.
Wow.
Years later, Gosselin would go on to write about the whole ordeal in a 2018 book titled A Bear Road, The True Story. And
I think it's pronounced A Bear.
That's what I said, a bear. But you can rewind that back, and that's exactly how I'm not sure why in Netherland. Anyways, the whole time he's not backed down one time from what he saw. It's also worth mentioning this case wasn't laughed off or dismissed like so many others. It's made the rounds in law enforcement circles, cryptozoology forums, and even in academic discussions about eyewitness credibility. Because again, we're talking about a uniformed police officer here, armed, trained, and he was absolutely terrified by what he saw. And I mean, I know I said that was going to be the last one, but the problem is, folks, that wouldn't be the last time something strange was spotted in Whitehall.
I do want to add before we move on, there is actually a yearly Whitehall Sasquatch Festival.
Man, it makes sense
and
now.
Calling contest. So I guess that's like the sound, that you heard. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. So this one takes place in February of 1982. And about 6 years after Brian Gosselin's unforgettable encounter on A Bear Road. And guess what? Still in the same general area, same woods, same vibe, same massive creature. This time, though, the story comes from Officer Dan Gordon and his partner, both on duty patrolling near Route 22, about half a mile from East Bay, right at the southern tip of Lake Champlain.
I mean, there's Champ.
Yeah.
Champy, yeah.
They're just rolling along, and suddenly, from out of the woods, an 8-foot-tall, ape-like creature comes sprinting across the road right in front of their patrol car. And this time, it's not just like, I guess, slowly walking. This thing is quick and agile. The creature then climbs straight up a steep embankment like it's nothing, and then disappears into the brush like it's been doing it for centuries.
Man, that's cool.
Now, what really sets this encounter apart is this description they gave, because while it was definitely Bigfootish, it's not your typical sort of hulking beast. You know, if you're thinking about Patty, growing up, that's what, when someone says Bigfoot, that's what I think of, sort of like walking slow, swinging the arms, looking back, and pendulous. Well, never mind. But this is different. You know, this thing was a bit more lanky, more narrow shoulders, and it had this slouch. And I don't know, man, even the one in 1976 seems like huge, sort of, you know, this guy's been working out. Bigfoot's just been doing push-ups. He's doing the 100 push-up challenge or something. He's huge. Right. He's jacked. This thing was weirdly human, you know, kind of lanky, more narrow in size, and had these more extremely long, thin arms, and its movements were much, much faster and much too smooth and fast, according to these officers, to be any person in a suit. Dan Gordon was so freaked out that he jumped out of the car and actually tried to chase the thing into the woods while his partner stayed behind, just frozen in the car.
You know, that's interesting because there are multiple encounters of, is it like Arkansas? But there's a few like Bigfoot sort of areas where they're more like lanky, like long. You know, they're not like just these giant sort of stocky, sort of like Patty.
Right.
You know, shaped Bigfoot.
And what's cool about that, you know, and I think after so many different types of Bigfoot encounters we've talked about briefly, you know, some that have different footprints, you know, not just so sort of humanoid looking footprints, but some with like 3 toes and weird stuff like that, you know, and it kind of thing that always opens up this idea that, well, you know, maybe there's different sort of subspecies,
right,
so to speak, of this type of creature, you know?
Yeah.
Another interesting thing here is that neither of these officers spoke publicly about this encounter for like 20 years. They kept it quiet. It wasn't until 2003 that Gordon finally decided to go public with it. And when he did, he just was all in. He talked about it in news stories, TV interviews, and even appeared in some documentaries on Monster Quest and Mysterious Encounters. His encounter and his sincerity were featured in Bigfoot encounters in New York and New England. And everyone who met him always described him in the same way: honest, calm, measured, and 100% totally convinced of what he saw. Even right up until his death in 2014. He never changed his story, not once.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love, I love those, it's very satisfying when you hear these stories where, like 99% of them where, like I mentioned before, where people are just like totally ridiculed, kind of laughed out of their town or fired from their job. Like, it's always like really satisfying to hear when a community sort of embraces it,
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we believe you because this guy is like, he's a credible guy.
Yeah.
So
an
cool.
Incredible guy.
There it is.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
The other part of this, as we kind of wrap up, and the thing is, I've got a ton more of these. I think I maybe got close to just under half of the stories that I've prepared.
Wow.
But what's incredible to me is it's sort of really I think this is what sort of attracted me to this idea of all these sort of police-based encounters. It really sets the vibe for the perfect, or I should say it's the setting for the perfect story, There's just something, because for the most part, when you think about police officers patrolling, it's nighttime, when things are already a little bit more dangerous and scary anyway.
Oh, yeah.
They're out and about when everyone else is sleeping.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like they're able to see these things at a time of day that just lends itself to be creepy anyway. And, I don't know. It just visually in my mind, I can see all of these things happening. And there's just something that I always thought was cool about, a police car in dark wooded area, in the fog and everything. And imagining them kind of coming in contact with these entities of various kind is just, I don't know. It's really freaky. It's really cool. And like we've said this entire episode, because of their station, there's a lot of credibility that you just have to kind of almost lend to them because of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like the them and the military, it's like, there's just to be in the positions that they're in, there has to be like a level of like training and observation and, to observe and protect. It's part of it.
It's amazing.
Well, if you also found this amazing, head on over to our Instagram, drop us a line, join our little community over there. Tell us what you liked about the show. Leave your own urban legend, your own Bigfoot encounter, your own UFO sighting. If it's more long form, drop us a DM or shoot it over to thatwouldberadpod@gmail.com. If you're the brave type, unlike Woody, head on over to thatwouldberadpodcast.com, where you can leave it in your own voice and tell your own story in a voice memo type setup, and maybe be featured in a future episode and become part of the That Would Be Rad history and lore. If you want to support the show, the best way to do it is over on our Patreon, The Rabbit Trail. It's just more of what you love. It's more That Would Be Rad goodness, and it's recorded a little later, and so it's a little looser, a little goosier, and but it is the best way to support the show. Tell a friend about the show, pass it on, spread the word. If you have the time, leave a 5-star review. It really helps get us in front of new ears and get possible new listeners. It just really helps to play the algorithm game. I guess that's about it. What do you got? Anything else?
I think that's it, man.
Oh, also, there is an upcoming episode for you Rabbit Trail members where we continue and go a little deeper even with the Captain Coochie's key lime pie stuff that I uncovered after, and
some scary stuff, that happened.
Yeah, kind of creepy thing that happened personally to me. So if you want to hear that, again, go join the rabbit trail. It's the best way to support the show. We love you. We appreciate you. And as always,
be rad.
That's the way it goes. Clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead before you became a ghost. You always said our future would be a parade of